بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Alhamdulillah, welcome back to another lesson of Mastering Tarkeeb. Inshallah, today the plan is to go through various tarkeebs in regards to Asma'ul Kinayat, Kadha, Kayta, and Dhayta. So these are known as obscure nouns. So they will have a word that appears after this, which will act as a tamyiz. And if you remember from our previous lessons, tamyiz is a word that comes to clear up any ambiguity or doubt. So inshallah, let's get started. We have the word kadha. So we're going to start off with the word kadha today, inshallah. Now, kadha can appear in various positions in a sentence. So it can act as the mubtada, it can act as the fa'il, it can act as the maf'ul bihi. So we are going to go through, inshallah, various possibilities kadha can appear in a sentence. And then that will impact it in terms of what role it plays and how the sentence comes together. So kadha, you can normally translate it as such and such or so and so. It still is ambiguous, but however, it does come to remove some kind of element of ambiguity, even though the full extent of the ambiguity is not fully manifested and exposed in the sentence. So let's look at an example here. We have عندي كذا وكذا كتابا. So the simple translation of this sentence is I have such and such books. Now, let's get the laser. So, عندي, I have. كذا وكذا كتابا. Such and such books. Now, the actual amount of books is not clear-cut. It's not quantified. But however, it does some kind of way remove some kind of ambiguity, and that is that you have an X amount of books. So this is how these words function. They don't really denote with the tamyiz an adad which is sarih, a clear-cut amount, like we had with the other words that are used when we use tamyiz. For example, somebody says safartu Milan, I traveled, and then Milan means 1 mile. It's clear-cut. If somebody says عندي صاع tamran, I have 1 sa' of what? Tamran, kajur. So it's quantified. However, when we use kadha, there still remains a bit of ambiguity, but however, it does eliminate some kind of ambiguity from the sentence. So the role of kadha here, this is the most important thing. Kadha is going to play several roles in the following slides. So in this particular example, kadha with the tamyiz is going to group together and become mubtada'un. So let's break this down. عند is a ظرف مكان, so it's used to denote place. So it's mudaf because these words work with إضافة. That will make the ya al-mutakallim the mudaf إليه. Now we know that if ظرف comes at the beginning of a sentence, even though عند is a noun, it cannot qualify to become the mubtada, because mubtada cannot be ظرف, or you could say the other way around. ظرف cannot take the role of mubtada because it's denoting place. It's like a prepositional phrase. So for that reason, we will say عندي is خبر مقدم, and we can connect it to that which is hidden. So in this case, we could probably say the word كائن. So it corresponds with the word kitab, which is going to group together with كذا وكذا and become مبتدأ مؤخر. So عندي is ظرف مكان متعلق بمحذوف, is connected to that which is hidden, and here we will assume the word كائن. You can use other words if you want, ثابت, موجود, etc., and that becomes the khabar which has been advanced. That means everything else is going to form to become the mubtada'un. Now the mubtada consists of the word kadha. Now when we use kadha, a lot of times we will see that it'll be followed by a particle of conjunction, so wa, and the word kadha will be repeated. Like in English, we say so and so and such and such. So same thing in Arabic, the same concept, you will repeat the word. So عندي كذا وكذا كتابا. I have such and such books. I mean, in terms of amount. So كذا we will say is معطوف عليه because we are adding on to the word كذا. What are we adding? The next كذا. So that will make the word كذا معطوف عليه. Notice the word عليه, upon. I mean, we've added upon to this word. So this word will be known as معطوف عليه grammatically. Next, we have the particle of conjunction, which is the wa. So wa will be عاطفة, the conjoining word. And kadha is the word which we have joined onto kadha, the previous kadha. That the ma'tuf and ma'tuf alayh, what is this going to become? So if we say, I have such and such, there's a bit of ambiguity. Yes, we might not mention a clear-cut amount, like I mentioned before, but there's some kind of clearing up in terms of the ambiguity and obscurity which stems out from the word kadha wa kadha. Such and such what? Books. So kitaban is going to remove the doubt. So that's going to become the tamyiz. So let's make them kadha wa kadha is going to become mumayyazun. Remember we said mumayyazun is the noun from which the doubt stems out from. That will make and leave us with the word kitab becoming tamyiz, the noun that comes to remove the doubt. How? Because if we stop at this sentence here and say عندي كذا وكذا, I have such and such. Now the question is, such and such what? Kitaban is the noun that comes to remove doubt. So because we are covering tamyiz at the moment, and we have covered in the previous lessons, well, the previous lesson, tamyiz in great detail, kadha work with tamyiz as well. Just as the way kam worked with tamyiz, kadha also works with tamyiz. So we will have mumayyaz and we will have tamyiz. Now, what's the role of kadha wa kadha kitaban in this sentence? Like we said at the top, the role is going to become that it plays a role of becoming mubtada'un. So it's delayed. So that's why we are saying mubtada'un mu'akhkharun. The delayed mubtada, the delayed nominal subject. And the khabar muqaddam, which is عندي, plus the mubtada mu'akhkhar, will group together and become jumla ismiya because it started with a noun. So we'll say kadha wa kadha kitaban. The word kadha is ismul kinaya. It will be the main, you could say, component of the sentence which we will classify in terms of determining if it's jumla ismiya or fa'liya. But because the khabar has been advanced, because the stress is on possessing such and such books, that's why the word indi has been advanced. Otherwise, kadha wa kadha kitaban still remains as mubtada, but it's just been delayed. So we will say it's jumla ismiya and khabriya because it's relaying information. Okay. Next, we will see that the word kadha is actually playing the role of being the khabar. So in the previous slide, kadha was playing the role of becoming mubtada, and it was delayed, so we said mubtada'un mu'akhkharun. In this slide, the role of kadha is that it's going to become the khabar. So let's look at an example. المسافرون كذا وكذا رجلا. المسافرون كذا وكذا رجلا, which simply translates as the travelers are such and such men, or so and so men. So you're not giving an exact figure and amount. So in terms of translation, sometimes so and so goes better in English, sometimes such and such goes better when we're translating. So you can choose whichever translation you want. Whether you want to say so and so or such and such, it's up to you. And if you do know the English grammatical usage of the word such and such in which scenarios or so and so, then you can put that in the comment, and that's something I can learn as well. But I'm just keeping it to basic English in terms of just keeping it simple. So in translation, whatever best you decide, you can. I'll leave that to you. So the travelers are so and so men, meaning, or such and such men, meaning not a specific amount. So here, what's happening? We have the mubtada at the beginning, which is al-musafirun. It's jam'un mudhakkarun salimun word. So we can see that it's in the state of raf because of the waw, because we're not saying al-musafirina, we're saying al-musafiruna. And why is it in the state of raf? Because it's mubtada'un. That leaves everything else now is going to become the khabar. So kadha is ma'tuf alayh, because we're going to add on to this word. Waw is the particle that is used to conjoin the word kadha with the next kadha, so wa will be known as atifatun. And the reason why we say atifatun feminine, in other words, kalimatun atifatun, it's a conjoining word, so it's actually the nat of the word kalimatun, but you don't need to mention and say wa kalimatun atifatun all the time, so we just say atifatun. That leaves the next word kadha to become ma'tuf. This is the word which we've added. What have we added on this onto? The previous kadha. Now the ma'tuf alayh together, what role would it play? It'll become mumayyazun. Why? Because this is where the doubt stems out from. And mumayyazun is a word which creates the doubt. So if we just stop at this for a moment and say, the travelers are such and such, so and so, so and so, or such and such what? Men, women, children, what? So rajulan has come to remove this doubt. So rajulan would be tamyiz. Tamyiz. Now the mumayyaz and tamyiz, what role is he playing in this sentence here? Is playing the role of becoming the khabar, the predicate, okay, of the subject, nominal subject. So khabar. Now the mubtada plus the khabar will become a jumla, so it's a complete sentence. Ismiyatun because it started with the noun al-musafirun, and khabariyatun because it is passing on information. There's not a command, there's no prohibition, there's no interrogation, there's no qasam, etc. Those 10 sentences that fall under jumal insha'iyya. Next, kadha plays the role of becoming fa'il. So the subject of the active verb. So let's look at an example. سافر كذا وكذا رجلا. سافر كذا وكذا رجلا, which simply translates as such and such men traveled. Like I said before as well, you can translate so and such, whatever rocks your boat, you can translate accordingly. Now, kadha here is going to play the role of becoming fa'il. So the mumayyaz and tamyiz, eventually we're going to learn, is going to become the fa'il. So we got safara, which is from safara yusafiru musafaratan, ba mufa'ala. Ba mufa'ala, by the way, it can have two patterns for the masdar. So, for example, you got qatala yuqatilu muqatalatan, and you got qitalan. So qatala, which means to combat. It don't mean to kill. Qatala yaqtulu means to kill. Qatala yuqatilu means to combat. And you got mufa'alatan and you got fi'alan. Like jadala yujadilu mujadalatan, and you got jidalan. So safara is from that same verb pattern. So safara is fi'lun madhi. Where's the fa'il? It's everything else after that's going to come. So kadha, again, ma'tuf alayh. We've added onto the word kadha. We've used the wa to join. So wa is harfu atf. It's a particle of conjunction. By the way, there's 10 particles of conjunction. There are 10 words that are used to join one thing with another, i.e. in terms of its grammatical ruling. You got fa, you got thumma, you got bal, you got lakin, you got la, etc. Those can be found in the grammar books. The next kadha, this is the word which we've added, so that will be ma'tuf. Now the ma'tuf alayh is going to become mumayyazun. Why? Because if we stop here, safara kadha wa kadha, traveled such and such what? Like I said, was he tiflan, was he imra'atan, was he rajulan, ghulaman, who was he? So there's a bit of a doubt. Rajulan comes to clear the doubt. So Rajulan will be known as tamyiz. Now the mumayyiz and the tamyiz together will group together and become the fa'il of safara. So like we mentioned, kadha, the function of kadha here, along with the tamyiz, is grouping together to become the fa'il. And together this becomes a sentence, so jumlatun, fi'liyatun because it started with the verb safara, and khabriyatun because it is informative. It's passing on information. And now let's move on. The next one is that the kadha is functioning with the tamyiz and becoming na'ibul fa'il, which probably can translate as the word deputizing for the subject of the active verb, or substitute doer in simple terms, if people understand it like that, and that's fine as well. So let's look at an example. Ukrima kadha wa kadha mujtahidan. Such and such hard-working ones were honored. Such and such hard-working ones were honored. Now, ukrima, this is from babi fa'al, so akrama, yukrimu ikraman, so the passive form of akrama is ukrima. So ukrima is fi'lun madin majhulun. And in some grammar books, they would probably say mabniyun lil majhul. It's been constructed as passive. So just keep it short, fi'lun madin majhul. It's the past tense verb, but in the passive voice, not active voice. That leaves everything else going to become the na'ibul fa'il. So kadha is ma'tuf alayh. Waw would be the harf atf. And the next kadha is ma'tuf. And then the ma'tuf alayh, kadha, the previous ma'tuf alayh, the previous word kadha, and the ma'tuf together will group together and become mumayyazun, because it's the word from which doubt is created. How? Because if we were to just stop on the word kadha wa kadha, it will leave us in suspense mode. So such and such were honored. Who? Such and such what? So mujtahidan has come to clear things up. So that leaves the word mujtahidan to become tamyiz. And we mentioned in our previous lesson, in terms of mastering Tarkeeb course, that tamyiz is nakiratun mansubatun. It's always brought as indefinite, so mujtahidan. So we're not saying al mujtahid, the, and it's mansub. Okay, so it's one of the mansubat. Now the mumayyiz and tamyiz together is going to become the na'ibul fa'il because those are the ones who were honored. So it becomes a na'ibul fa'il of ukrima. And in terms of completing the sentence, it becomes a jumla, so jumlatun. Fi'liyatun because it started with the verb ukrima, which is in the passive voice. And it's khabriyatun because it is passing on information. Now, next we see that the word kadha is going to become the maf'ul bihi. So the object of the verb. Maf'ul bihi. So let's look at an example. Akramtu kadha wa kadha aliman. Akramtu kadha wa kadha aliman. Which translates simply as I honored such and such learned ones. Now, akramtu, same verb pattern as the previous line. So akrama, so from bab if'al. So akramtu is fi'lun madin. The fa'il is the ta, akramtu, which obviously taqdiran it's ana. So its assumed version is ana, meaning I. Everything else is now going to become the maf'ul bihi. Now, it might seem like now we're repeating ma'tuf, ma'tuf alayh, etc. But the bigger picture is you now, when you come across the word kadha, in terms of becoming the fa'il, maf'ul bihi, the khabar, the mubtada, it gives a different perspective to when we approach Arabic texts. So when we see kadha, it's not just that we're translating it as such and such or so and so. We will inshallah understand the role it plays in the sentence, how it functions in the sentence. So here it's functioning with the tamyiz as the maf'ul bihi. So kadha is ma'tuf alayh. This is the word which we've added on to. What have we added? That's going to come later on, the other kadha. What is the word which we are using to conjoin? So it's a'tifatun, or we could say harfu atfin, particle of conjunction. So you can bring it as mudaf alayh construct and say harfu atfin, or you can bring on the pattern of ismul fa'il, active participle, so fa'ilatun. And kadha, the second one is ma'tuf, that's the word which we've added. Now the ma'tuf alayh kadha and the ma'tuf together is going to become mumayyazun. Because if we stop on the word kadha wa kadha, it will leave some kind of doubt. So aliman has come to remove this doubt, so aliman would be known as tamyiz. Now the mumayyaz and tamyiz will group together and become the maf'ul bihi of akramtu. The maf'ul bihi of akramtu. In terms of grouping the whole sentence together, it becomes jumlatun, sentence, fi'liyatun because it started with the verb akramtu, and khabriyatun because it is informative. So akramtu kada wa kada aliman. The mumayyaz and tamyiz in this sentence is functioning as becoming maf'ul bihi. Next, the word kada is functioning as al-maf'ul fi, adverb of time, ظرف زمان, because we know al-maf'ul fi, adverb, well, maf'ul fi can be either be zaman or makan. So here this is example where it's becoming ظرف zaman, adverb of time. So an example is سافرت كذا وكذا يوما. We translate as I travel on so and so day. So you're not specifically saying, like for example, يوم الجمعة, I travel on, the day of Jum'ah. So I traveled so and so day. Probably you can translate this as probably I traveled for so and so days. You can possibly do that as well. Now we can see that the tamyiz here, the mumayyaz and tamyiz is going to become the maf'ul fi ظرف zaman. So let's break this down. So سافرت فعل ماض, the fa'il is the ta, I traveled. كذا is ma'tuf alayh, we've added on to this word the other kaza which is coming. So wa is the particle used to conjoin, and the second kaza is ma'tuf. That's what we have added. Now the ma'tuf and ma'tuf alayh will group together and become mumayyazun. Mumayyazun on the ismul maf'ul pattern from bab taf'il. Mumayyazun. And yoman is going to become tamyiz. Now the mumayyaz and tamyiz together is going to become what? Is going to become the maf'ul fi ظرف zaman, because it's showing time. I traveled on so and so day. So it's not maf'ul bihi, it's maf'ul fi. So notice here kada wa kada yawman. Okay. Depending on what comes after it, that kind of gives the clue what the word kada wa kada functions as in this particular slide. Next, obviously grouping the whole sentence together, it becomes a jumla. Fi'liya because starting with the verb safartu, and khabriyatun because it is informative. Next, we see that kadha is functioning as al-maf'ul fi ظرف مكان. ظرف مكان. So same thing as the previous line, but here it's not adverb of time. It's actually going to be adverb of place. So let's look at an example. سرت كذا وكذا ميلا. سرت كذا وكذا ميلا, which means I traveled such and such miles. So and so miles. Now, the word miles shows place. Distance is not showing time, so it's not zaman, it's what? ظرف مكان. So here, سرت, this is from سار يسير, سير, which means to traverse and travel. سرت would be فعل ماض, and the fa'il is the ta. Everything else is going to become مفعول فيه ظرف مكان. So كذا is معطوف عليه. The waw would be حرف عطف, the particle used to conjoin. And the second كذا is going to become معطوف. Now the معطوف عليه will group together and become مميز. Why? Because if you stop on this كذا here, there will be some kind of doubt. سرت كذا وكذا. I traveled or I traversed such and such what? Miles. So the word milan is tamyiz, which comes to clear up things. Now the mumayyiz and tamyiz together here in this particular sentence is going to become maf'ul fi, object of place. Maf'ul fi ظرف مكان. In terms of the bigger picture, it becomes a sentence. So jumlatun fi'liyatun, because it started with the verb sirt, which is from sara yasiru, which is from daraba yadribu. Ajwafun ya'iyun. By the way, on the YouTube channel, so if you click on Sidra Institute or you are already subscribed, there are some videos which cover the different types of verbs that we see in Arabic, depending on the weak letters appearing inside the root letters as root letters. So alif, waw, ya. So you have daraba yadribu, nasara yansuru, hasiba yahsibu, karuma yakrumu. All these verbs, all these verbs, verb patterns, have subcategories depending on if they contain harful illa, a weak letter. So the structure of the apparent, becomes defected. So for example, sara yasiru is from daraba yadribu. It was sayara yasiru. But because of morphological rules, it became sara yasiru. So there's some videos you can probably go through the playlist. It's somewhere there. Inshallah, that will prove to be beneficial, where different types of abwab have been covered, and you can go through that playlist and inshallah benefit from that as well. So here it's going to become jumlatun fi'liyatun because it started with a verb, and khabriyatun because it is passing information. Next we see that kadha is functioning as al-maf'ul al-mutlaq. So it's functioning as the absolute object, which normally comes for emphasis. And if you remember maf'ul mutlaq, we covered it in quite extensively and in detail. That maf'ul mutlaq comes for various reasons, and its primary reason is reinforcement, tawqid or ta'qid, known as. So here we'll see that the mumayyiz and tamyiz will group together and become the maf'ul mutlaq. So ضربت كذا وكذا ضربا. I hit, in such and such, or I hit such and such. Probably we can get rid of that in the translation. Like I said, you can translate whichever way you want, but it will give this kind of more or less you will be translating such and such and so and so. Okay, and there's probably many people out there who will be able to translate this in a better way. So go ahead. Okay. So ضربت كذا وكذا ضربا. I hit, such and such. Meaning hitting and beating. So it's left anonymous, but if we left it to ضربت كذا وكذا, there's still some kind of doubt. Such and such what? I hit such and such what? I gave such and such beating. That's probably another best way to put it. Okay. So ضربت is فعل ماض. فعل ماض. The file is the ta. كذا will be معطوف عليه. That's the word which we're going to add on to. The waw is عاطفة. The next كذا is معطوف. That's what we've added. And the معطوف عليه with the معطوف is going to become مميز. That leaves the word ضربا to become تمييز. تمييز. Now the مميز and تمييز is going to group together and become مفعول مطلق. How? because the word ضربا is a masdar that has come in the same meaning as the verb mentioned before, which is ضربت. That's why the word ضربا or كذا وكذا ضربا will function as becoming مفعول مطلق when we make it in terms of constructing the sentence. And in terms of completing the sentence, it becomes جملة فعلية because started with the verb ضربت, and خبرية because it is informative. Next, we're going to see that the كذا is acting as the absolute object, المفعول المطلق, but this time for عدد. Because if you remember, مفعول المطلق, it can function in three ways. One is for توكيد, just mere emphasis. So for example, somebody says أكلت أكلا, mean ate so much. It can either function as نوع, explaining the manner how the verb took place. So جلست جلسة القارئ, I sat like the sitting of a qari. And the third function is that it comes for عدد. جلست جلسة, I sat once. Or جلستين, I sat twice. Or جلست جلسات, I sat several times. So here كذا, yes, it comes as مفعول مطلق, but more specifically, it's functioning as عدد, the amount. So here ذهبت إلى حديقة كذا مرة. ذهبت إلى حديقة كذا مرة, which simply translates as I went to the garden or to a garden. Okay, حديقة is نكرة, so probably I went to a garden. Probably would have been best to say إلى الحديقة كذا مرة, so and so times, such and such times. Now the word مرة, if we actually break this down, مرة, it actually comes on the pattern of فعلة. And مفعول المطلق, when it functions for عدد, it actually comes on the pattern of فعلة. So if I was to say أكلت أكلة, that will mean I ate once. نمت نومة, I slept once. Okay, سرت سيرة, I traveled once. So مرة actually gives the meaning of وحدة, once. So this is how it's actually ذهبت, okay, ذهابا مرة, or ذهبة مرة, if you want to put it like that, put it more on the pattern of فعلة. So you can say it's actually acting as the sifa of the مفعول مطلق, which is محذوف. But we just say, okay, that مرة is مفعول مطلق. So here, the مميز and تمييز, will learn that it's grouping together and it's becoming the مفعول مطلق. But more specifically for عدد. The previous slide was just مفعول مطلق. ضربت كذا وكذا ضربا. وهي ذهبت إلى حديقة كذا مرة. Okay, so let's break this down. ذهبت, which is from ذهب يذهب ذهابا, which means to go. So it's past tense verb. The fine is the ta. إلى is jar. And حديقة is the majroor. Now the jar majroor here, we will connect it to the verb ذهبت. Not every jar majroor has to be connected to something. We covered that in our first few lessons of mastering Tarkeeb. And this is something that we need to understand. That when we see prepositional phrases, we have to see how they are functioning in the sentence, and when do we connect the prepositional phrases? That's one thing. And what do we connect them to? i.e. the muta'allaq. All that has been covered in the first few lessons. So here كذا will be مميز straight from the onset, and مرة will be the tamyiz. كذا مرة will group together and become the مفعول مطلق for عدد. Okay, للعدد. للعدد. And in terms of the bigger picture, it becomes جملة, it becomes a sentence. فعلية because started with the verb ذهبت, and خبرية because it's passing on information. Now moving on to كذا, it can function as المضاف إليه. Now one thing I want to note here, you will find this in the grammar books like جامع الدروس. Okay, most of this Tarkeeb course, well, in fact all of it, is a combination of study and research from various grammar books, and all the kind of dynamics and possibilities of sentence structure, construction that can be found have been put into this course. So that's why you will see that when we are covering these grammatical sentences, you may not find, these aspects in your grammar books that you're probably studying. For example, al-Ajrumiyya or Qatrun Nada, or you're studying Hidayatun Nah. Okay, things are mentioned briefly in those kind of books. So a lot of this material which has been prepared in PowerPoints it's been researched and checked in extensive grammar books. So you got like An-Nahw al-Wafi, Jami' al-Durus, okay, Mu'jam Qawa'id al-Sarf wal-Nahw, okay, there's various books, An-Nahw al-Kafi. So that's why, inshallah, the attempt is to bring those concepts of Arabic grammar into life and easy accessible for the viewers, and also something that they will be able to, inshallah, understand very easily through the PowerPoint slides, because otherwise it will require one, or the students, to go and, number one, find those books, whether it's PDF or physical copies. Number two, go through those chapters and those sections. And number three, to understand what's going on and how, those grammatical concepts are applied and understood. So alhamdulillah, by doing this course, you actually gain, a lot of exposure to Arabic grammar, inshallah. So كذا can function as مضاف إليه, but in this particular situation, there will not be any tamyiz. Okay, so look at this example. جلست في مكان كذا. There's no tamyiz. When كذا function as مضاف إليه, in such and such place. So في مكان كذا. Let's get the translation. I sat, جلست, في مكان كذا, in so and so place. When كذا functions as مضاف إليه, there is no need for any tamyiz. So remember that. So here we will do تركيب. جلست is فعل ماضي. The fa'il is the ta. في would be jar. Now the majrur obviously is compounded with the word كذا. So مكان will be مضاف. Okay, so there's a bit of a mistake there. So we need to get rid of, what do we need to get rid of? The word إليه. So مكان is مضاف. That leaves the word كذا to become مضاف إليه. Should have, if there was only a copy and paste button, we could have just copied the word إليه, but in Zoom there isn't, unfortunately. So مضاف إليه. So typo error. Okay. So مكان is مضاف, كذا is مضاف إليه. And the مضاف إليه will become مجرور because of في. And the prepositional phrase here, we can connect it to the word جلست. And in terms of the bigger picture, it becomes جملة فعلية خبرية. It becomes a sentence فعلية because it started with the verb جلست, which is from جلس. Okay, يجلس جلوسا. ضرب يضرب. And خبرية because it's passing on information. Now we have, alhamdulillah, covered the word كذا in quite a bit of detail, and the different roles it can play in the sentence. And we did say at the beginning of the slide, we are going to cover Kadhā, Kayta, and Dhayta. Now, the word Kayta can translate as such and such, so and so as well, how you want it. But there's a difference in terms of usage of the word Kayta and Dhayta. Kayta is used al-makniyu bihi an jumlatil qawl. It is used to allude to the statement of the sentence. So when you want to use and say, I said such and such thing, then you use the word Kayta. In contrast to the word Dhayta, Dhayta is used al-makniyu bihi an jumlatil fi'li. So it's alluded to by using Dhayta to what? The action of the sentence. So if, for example, somebody says, fa'altu, I did such and such. So you won't say fa'altu Kayta wa Kayta. You'll say fa'altu Dhayta wa Dhayta. Fa'altu Dhayta wa Dhayta. So I did such and such. So just to recap, when you use the word Kayta, it normally comes, okay, with, well, it comes with a statement, meaning the verb qawl before it. So qultu Kayta wa Kayta, I said such and such. Whereas Dhayta works with a fi'l, an action. So I did such and such. So that would be fa'altu Dhayta wa Dhayta. And when you use one, you got to use the other because it needs a bit of backup. So here, Kayta, it can function in different ways in the sentence. Its role in a sentence can differ. So in this particular slide, we'll be learning its maf'ul bihi. So let's look at an example. قلت كيت وكيت. قلت كيت وكيت. Which means I said so and so. I said so and so. So notice here, we haven't used the word Dhayta because Dhayta, which we're going to learn, that actually comes, okay, when you mention an action. Like فعلت Dhayta wa Dhayta. So قلت كيت وكيت. Let's break this down into the Tarkeeb. So قلت would be past tense verb, فعل ماضي from قال يقول قولا. The fa'il is the ta. Now كيت is معطوف عليه. Wa is عاطفة. The next كيت is something that's what we've added, so it's معطوف. Now the معطوف عليه كيت and the other كيت together, the معطوف عليه and معطوف is going to become the مفعول به of قلت because that's what I said. I said so and so. So notice here, there's no tamyiz involved as well. You just use these words in contrast to the word kadhā. In terms of the bigger picture, it's jumlatun. It's a sentence. Fi'liyatun because starting with the verb qultu, and khabriyatun because it is informative. Now, next one, we're still sticking to the word Kayta, and we know that Kayta before it, well, it's used with statement, means saying something. So saying so and so. But however, here in this particular slide, is going to function as al-khabar al-muqaddam, advanced predicate. So let's look at an example. Kayta wa kayta qawlu siddiq. Kayta wa kayta qawlu siddiq. So and so is the statement of the trustworthy one, or the truthful one. Probably truthful one is better. Trustworthy is mean, isn't it? So truthful one. Oh, can probably change the translation on that one. So let's get a shape in there. Okay. I'll put the word truthful. So truthful, two absolute brilliant qualities. Al-Amin, As-Sadiq. which the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was known by. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, so and so is the statement of the truthful one. A Siddiq, we know obviously there's exaggeration here. So we have to say, you know, the most truthful one, or the utmost truthful one, or this, whichever word you can think of, you can apply in terms of intensification in the meaning. Okay, because as-Siddiq gives that meaning. Okay, so Kayta wa Kayta is going to become khabar muqaddam. So Kayta, let's look at this. Kayta is ma'tuf alayh. The waw is atifatun. The next word Kayta is ma'tuf. This is going to group together and become khabar muqaddam. Khabar muqaddam. In other words, we are saying qawlu Siddiq, the statement of the truthful one, is so and so. So that becomes khabar muqaddam. So the role of Kayta here is khabar muqaddam. That leaves the word qawlu Siddiq. So qawl is mudaf, as-Siddiq is mudaf ilay, and this will group together and become mubtada'un mu'akhkharun, the delayed mubtada. And in terms of the bigger picture, it's jumlatun, it becomes a complete sentence. Ismiyatun, because it started with the noun, qawlu Siddiq, even though we advance Kayta wa Kayta. Okay. And khabariyatun, it is informative. Okay. Let's get rid of that annotation, inshallah. Okay, there we go. Next one, we got the word Dhayta. So look carefully here. Al-makniyu bihi an jumlatil fi'li. By it alludes to what? The action of the sentence. So I did so and so, instead of saying I said so and so. So when you say an action, you use the word Dhayta. When it's a statement, you use the word Kayta. So let's look at an example. Fa'altu Dhayta wa Dhayta. So notice here, we're not saying Fa'altu Kayta wa Kayta. We're saying Fa'altu Dhayta wa Dhayta. I did so and so. I did so and so. So let's break this down grammatically. So فعلت is فعل ماض. So فعل يفعل فعلا from باب فتح يفتح. One way to notice words from باب فتح يفتح is that the ain or lam kalima, the ain or lam kalima will be from the letters of the throat. حروف الحلق. Okay? Or yeah, letters of the throat. So hamza, ha, ain, ha, ghain, kha. So we can see ain here. فعل. So قرأ يقرأ. So we can see that the lam kalima, the letter hamza, is from the letter of the throat. حروف الحلق. Okay, so فعلت is فعل الماضي. The fa'il is a ta. Dhayta is معطوف عليه. Wa is عاطفة. The next Dhayta is معطوف. Now the معطوف عليه will group together and become the مفعول به of فعلت, because that's what I did. So the role of Dhayta wa Dhayta here is becoming مفعول به. And in terms of the bigger picture, it's going to become a jumla, sentence, fi'liyatun, because it started with the verb fa'altu, and khabriyatun, because it is informative. So alhamdulillah, today we have covered kadha extensively, the different functions kadha plays in the sentence, the role it takes up, and we've covered Kayta and the word wadayta and the difference in terms of usage. Kayta is used when we say qultu, I said, or I'm going to say such and such thing. So it don't necessarily mean you need to use the past tense verb. Could be aqulu kayta wa kayta. Okay, and for action, you'll use dhayta. So somebody says, yes, I'm going to do so and so thing. سأفعل ذيت وذيت. So you won't say Kayta وكيتا because for action you'll use the word Dhayta. Okay, so alhamdulillah, that completes Kadhā, Kayta and Wadhayta. Inshallah next week this one Dhul Hal, which is also known as Sahibul Hal and Hal. This will be quite intense and extensive. Okay, so this will go on for a couple of lessons. Okay, because there's so much to the circumstantial phrase. Hal and Sahibul Hal, or if you want to say Dhul Hal and Hal. Even a Nat, these two will be quite extensive in terms of their coverage, and we will be covering probably 40 plus, probably even more than that, probably 50 plus slides in regards to the circumstantial phrase. So inshallah, I hope you are all learning and improving in your Arabic. If somebody is interested in any of our other courses, you can visit www.sidrainstitute.com. There's various courses that we have, starting with the Balagha course, Arabic Rhetoric. So this covers the 3 core disciplines of Arabic Rhetoric, Balagha, namely Ilm al-Ma'ani, Science of Semantics, Ilm al-Bayan, Science of Articulation and Expression, and Ilm al-Badi, Science of Embellishments. And we also have the I'rab course. If anybody is interested in knowing how the Arabic diacritical markings and vowels work, then there's 27 hours of content and packed with exercises. Even the Arabic Rhetoric course, Balagha, is packed with exercises and summaries as well. So after every section of study, there's a breakdown and summary of what you have learned to consolidate learning. There's also a free course as well, how to use the Hansword Dictionary. You'll find that in the playlist on YouTube. You can even register and have access to resources as well if you sign up to the website and register and take the course from there. You'll have your own actual portal and dashboard where you can download various free resources as well in PDF formats, and you can also join the Telegram support group through that. And if you have any questions in terms of Arabic grammar, you can post your questions, inshallah, as well. Another new thing which I have not officially, announced and launched is on the website. You'll see that there's a section which covers questions related to grammar and also Arabic rhetoric. So, alhamdulillah, this is a new initiative. So when students or colleagues ask questions, these questions are researched and then the answer is provided and is put up on the website as well. So in that section, you will find a question section which covers queries people have in terms of the Arabic language and Arabic rhetoric. Now, inshallah, one good news, alhamdulillah, summa alhamdulillah, is Sidra Institute in the soon, inshallah, in probably a couple of weeks or a month or so, will be launching its latest publication. So the first one, alhamdulillah, was Qasasun Nabeen, the I'rab of the full part 1, all the diacritical markings explained in Qasasun Nabeen. It's unvowel text with extensive vocabulary. So that was the first publication, but inshallah, soon we will be publishing a new book. So please keep a watch out for that as well. And inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us and grant us beneficial knowledge. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Inshallah, we'll continue from here next.